Hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, we have a little bit of a, General Lanza travels all the time, and he's here today, and then the computer stopped working. So, go figure. So, real quick, we're gonna go ahead and get started, but Alicia is on her way back with the other slides to kind of get them back up here. But we're starting with the chaplain here in a minute. So, my slide's not up here. Again, I told you that I would revisit this every time, and it's about rebalancing the families and the service members, the soldiers and the airmen and the commanders based off of what the installation priorities are and what we need you to communicate from command messaging back down through your commanders and your sergeants, majors, and your first sergeants, but also with the FRGs. And then again, over here to our right is all the directors for the installation that you can talk to afterwards and then schedule for them to come down and talk to you. A couple things from the last community update that I want to kind of hit up on real quick is, number one, we talked about transition for soldiers, airmen, and also spouses and family members because we have programs. So there's another one that's coming up here on 4 May, and Mark Brown will talk about that here in a little bit that's coming up. And so we're going to continue to re-emphasize those each time at a community update so we make sure we get a common understanding about what's coming up in the future. And then the other one I talked about last week was road safety. Okay, so I laid out with DES and the director of PW Public Works with Matt Toth and Steve Perrineau, and we laid out looking at certain stretches of roads based off of where we've seen collisions, vehicle to vehicle, as well as vehicle to pedestrian. And the vehicle to pedestrian ones can be pretty significant because of the damage that it can cause to another person. And so we're taking a look at some of those things. Some crosswalks are placed where they shouldn't be placed, which put people at risk. And so we have a tremendous challenge with distracted driving across the installation. And Matt Toth and Chris Burns and myself are looking at that all the time. But we have individual responsibility as well. As a matter of fact, I was driving, I think it was over the weekend, and I came up to Jensen, and there was a person crossing the crosswalk, and they had a towel over their head walking across the crosswalk. So, I stopped, and I was, so I wish I could have taken a picture of it, but most importantly, we have to look at where we're seeing the density of the accidents and then take the appropriate steps. And that takes command information and commander's involvement as well. And so we're doing that with the traffic school as well. So just a little bit of feedback on that. That takes a little bit of time to kind of work through that. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Perrineau and myself and General Lanza are going to be meeting later on today, and a topic like that will come up. It's never that easy to fix. So what I want to do real quick is hand this off to Chaplain Powers, and then he's going to talk to you about the Vacation Bible School, and then a couple other messages, and then we'll start handing it back over to the directors, and we'll move forward if we don't have the slides. So the focus of this update, we shifted a little bit from the installation priorities like we normally do because we want to focus on the summer events that are coming up with the Air Show, Armed Forces Day, Freedom Fest, and then we also want to talk about some significant things that we need to talk about. Like I said, transition with next week, and then some housing updates from Don Meyer from Lincoln. So, Chaplain.
Thank you, sir. I'm Chaplain Rob Powers. I'm the Joint Base Chaplain. And some people are confused. What do chaplains have to do with readiness? So if you read my signature block on the email, many of you are not privileged to that, it says, I integrate religious support to enable readiness. There are about 600 words in the Bible that talk about readiness. In my faith tradition, it says you need to be ready for that day whenever it happens. And then some people say, well, it's going to happen at some distant time in the future. The most dangerous thing we do is pull onto I-5. Are you ready? Are you ready? And then this whole thing about readiness, well, you think about church and you think about somebody sitting behind your kids and thumping them in the ear. And that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. And some of us think about training like it's not a lot of fun. But folks, 20 years ago, they threw me out of a perfectly good helicopter on the end of a rope, and I thought it was fun. I did. And I was in this place where we learned how to embark rapidly and then we would fly in a rotary wing airframe to another place, and we would disembark rapidly, and we would set up a perimeter. And I'm so old that we did it in UH-1s through the jungle in Hawaii with the doors open. I would have paid them to do that. That was fun. So what we wanted to show you, and families are a part of readiness. That's one of the things that we want to emphasize all the time. If your family's not ready for you to deploy, you're not ready to deploy. And that's what chaplains are all about. So we want you to know that chaplains are about readiness, and that readiness can be fun. And so I want to show this clip. This is Vacation Bible School last year. This is what getting your kids ready for you to deploy looks like. Next slide, please. So if you want to sign up, there's paper. Oh, thank you. I had nothing to do with the success of this, but it's the whole team back here. McChord, raise your hand. Air Force side, they arranged all the goodies. Mr. Stover, my senior DRE, and my staff over here, the Army side, they're working on Vacation Bible School as hard as they can. Lewis North Chapel seats 400 people. We had 400 kids in there last year for Vacation Bible School. This year, we're shooting for 600. We're going to put 400 in Lewis North, and then we're going to put 200 over on the Air Force, and we need more volunteers. So if you want to volunteer, you want to sign your kids up, or you want your kids in your units to know about it, please take the material. And subject to your questions, that concludes what I have to offer today. Sir? Okay, Alicia.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulty, all the modern technology that we have, and sometimes you can't use it, so apologize for the delay. So here's our agenda. We've already done the special video presentation by Chaplain Powers. Thank you so much, sir. Just a couple administrative remarks before we go into our presentations. If you have questions, please wait for folks to get the microphone to you, because we do record this and put it up on the website, and they cannot record the questions if you don't speak into the microphone. Also, there should be feedback forms on your tables. If you have any information, suggestions you want to share with us, please make sure you fill those out. Leave them on the tables. We'll collect them at the end. And so we'll go right into installation priorities. Mr. Dennis Seffner with MWR. Oh, yes, sign-in roster is going around. Please make sure your information's up to date. Thanks. Dennis?
Good morning. I'm Dennis Seffner with MWR. I used to think that I was Mr. Fun until I heard the chaplain. And what he was doing, it's been a lot of fun. Can you go to the next slide, please? Guys, what I want to do this morning is I want to talk a little bit about non-appropriated funds and appropriated funds and how they tie into MWR, and then AFES and how it ties into MWR. So where you see things like this, where you got an Armed Forces Day and it's sponsored by, and you see in the bottom of this slide who it's sponsored by, those are local businesses that provide dollars for MWR to operate this type of an event for the installation. So as an example, in this particular slide, those businesses have provided roughly $50,000 to the commander through the commercial sponsorship business so that we can host this event for the service members of Joint Base Lewis McChord. So when you think about MWR think that 60% of our money comes from people spending dollars within AFES, because we get a dividend back from AFES. That dividend's about $5 million a year. The rest of the money comes from people doing things on Joint Base Lewis McChord within MWR. So we kind of break out three ways. A Category A means it's only appropriated funds. A Category B means 60% of it is appropriated funds. And a Category C means 0%. So that's all driven by how we generate revenue. So next slide. Another example is Freedom Fest. As you know, Freedom Fest this year is not open to the public. It is open only to ID card holders. Another kind of a name drop I'm going to do here for the live entertainment. It looks like we have a group that I think many of you guys will recognize. That group's called America. If you remember it, I know you do, sir. Well, I absolutely do, sir. Yeah, okay. Next slide, please. All right, so this year we're doing an air show and a Warrior Expo. The last one we did was 2012, and it is a combination this year of air acts and some demonstrations that will take place from the Army side. You can see the dates on it. Here's what I'm going to encourage. For you that are ID card holders, on that Friday where there's a demonstration, the traffic might be a little less. It could be a little easier to get there. And the demonstration is really a pre-run to what will take place on the Saturday and Sunday. We expect, and Mr. Toff is hoping I'm wrong, somewhere between 100,000 to 150,000 patrons every day. So it'll be a relatively large event. Again, same thing applies here. Many of the things that we can do in the MWR world are paid for by sponsors. In this case, upwards of $200,000 of the air show cost to be paid for by sponsors. Next slide. And this slide got a little busy, but what I wanted to show you is on the days of Saturday and Sunday, there is a specific access control point for ID card holders. So the ID card holders will go through a separate area compared to the regular public. And that area is between hangars 2 and 3 on McChord, and also there'll be shuttle buses running from the Lewis side to the McChord side to accommodate and try to assist in the traffic problems that we might enjoy. If you recall from the last time, we had some I-5 backups, and that's part of the plan that Mr. Toff and group are putting in place to try to eliminate some of those. This should be a great event. As you can see, the Thunderbirds are there, the Golden Knights are there. There are 7 other acts that will be there. It'll be a 3.5 to 4 hour show. Should be a great event. Next slide. Next slide, please. Because while we're doing this, I just want to emphasize again, the AFES partnership with MWR, and that is a partnership that is both with the Army and the Air Force. And so the way it's structured is as patrons use AFES as their shopping outlet, there is a formula that provides money back to each installation across the Army. Again, in our case, about $5 million. That $5 million permits us to do many things. Things like building a new youth sports complex on McChord, building a new youth sports complex on Lewis. Those kind of things get funded with non-appropriated fund dollars, which come in part through that dividend. All right, so here's one that we did last year, and we are doing it again this year. This is about 200 participants that have challenges from wartime activities that they were involved with. And so there's approximately 100 Army and 100 Air Force personnel that will be taking their 4 days to go through different forms of fitness type of activities. And it'll be held here on Joint Base Lewis McChord. Obviously, you can see from the bottom that we're doing it in a variety of areas. The reason I bring this one up is audience participation is critical here. People being there and encouraging these young men and women to do what they're doing is important to them. It makes the event fun. It can be a nice family event. There's some teaching tools that are associated to it. I encourage you to look to put it on your calendar and stop out and thank them. Next slide, please. This is the bistro, and I want to talk about some of the policies that are in place for business activities that IMCOM has implemented. And one of the policies in place is a place like the bistro, a place like the McChord Club, our golf courses, our bowling facilities do not receive appropriated funds to operate. And so the policy out of IMCOM and Army is if you cannot operate them at a break even, that means you have to make $1 in profit. Profit comes from sales, and of course away from sales go the expenses of operating it. The bistro has been and is on what's called a performance improvement plan. What that basically says is you have 1 year to make it profitable, and if you don't make it profitable in 1 year, IMCOM likely will say, we must close that facility. Now, I realize there's senior leaders here that will have input into that, but right now, those are the facts. So what I encourage is when you have smaller events of 100 people or less, use the facility. Communicate with the manager. If you want to do things on weekends, evenings, they'll accommodate you. But I think this is a treasure of Joint Base Lewis McChord. Its location is phenomenal. I mean, it overlooks the lake. Obviously, there's marina there. If you haven't seen, we put new playgrounds in the back side of the park. We're putting a new splash park over there as well. We're trying to make that kind of a north destination for families that live on that side. But this is a critical element of it. So I ask you as commanders and family members, senior spouses, to think about that location and think about the value of it and see if you can help us help ourselves to make it a profitable organization for us. Next slide. If you haven't been to one of our 2 outdoor recreation facilities, go. Spend an hour. Figure it out. If you want to do some kind of an adventure trip, we've got it for you. As an example, we have one guy that's climbed this little mountain out here 54 times. He happens to lead the expeditions that go to the top of that mountain. We also have folks that specialize in nothing but what we call belladonna. What's belladonna? Belladonna is designed specifically for females who want to do specific, it can be extreme sport, it can be very comfortable sport, it can be learning a sport. And one of the things we're finding is folks get really intimidated by, I'm going to crawl that mountain? There's no way. Well, we'll take you through stages of how to get there. If you don't know how to kayak or waterboard, we'll teach you. It's easy. It's a matter of getting in the right class and learning how to do it. So folks that say there's nothing to do here, guys, there is so much to do here, it's ridiculous. If you don't see a program that you think fits your needs, tell us. We tailor it. That's what we do for a living. We'll tailor a program for a commander, for a command sergeant major, or for anyone that wants a program of a group of folks to do something. It's easy, it's fun, it's a way to get outside, it's a way to learn, it's a way to enjoy each other's company. So ask us, and we will figure out how to deliver it for you. That's just some of the things that we're doing. Another one, by the way, I think the boss is interested in, is deep sea fishing. We have all kinds of deep sea fishing trips that are inexpensive. They're one-day trips, they're two-day trips, but and obviously they're easily accessible for you. Next slide. All right, for those of you that golf, and I understand there's a few in the audience that do happen to golf, I just wanted to bring this up. It's important that we get this participation. These are the dates that we have the Joint Base Commanders Tournament. You can see the dates on them. The other thing I want to talk about in this is we have all kinds of training for kids. If you're not familiar with the First Tee program, the First Tee program is a program that's run by the PGA, that's the Professional Golf Association. We have both of our golf courses associated to it. So if you have a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, and they want to learn to golf, it's free, guys. Bring them out. They can go through the First Tee program. And it is a lot of fun. The kids truly enjoy it. We have the equipment for them. So it's a matter of them learning the basics of the game. There's a couple other notes up here about Father's Day and Mother's Day, things that we're doing. Inexpensive on those days. It's a great, relaxing, walking, enjoyable sport. If you don't know, both of our courses are Audubon Society approved, and we also have bird watching tours on both courses that you can go along with to get some flavor of what the outside's like. Next slide. The Northwest Adventure Center, that's obviously also the outdoor rec facility. Every year we do 2 non-appropriated fund sales. So that is equipment that we've used for skiing or for hiking or for tents, etc. And that equipment is beyond what we consider to be its shelf life for use. And we sell that equipment. And we sell approximately 500 items during the course of those sales. So if you're looking for decent used skis because you don't know if you want to ski, but you'd like to try it, you got 2 options. 1, you can rent them. 2, you can buy these relatively inexpensively. The Sesame Street, I don't think I need to say much about Sesame Street. I think we all understand what Sesame Street is, right? But it's a great event. Again, it's a partnership between us and AAFES. You can see the dates. Mother's Day brunch, obviously. So I'm going to say open to questions. Any questions or comments, sir? Thank you very much.
You go next slide. Okay, next up we have Mr. Pete Strom, and he's going to talk to us about summer safety.
Thank you, Alicia. Good morning, sir, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to do this maybe a little differently than you would normally expect from some safety guy standing up talking about summer safety, I hope. I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence in the room. You're all senior folks. You've all been there, done that for a lot of things. But there are some things and there are some ways of looking at things that you may not have encountered, and that's kind of what I want to try to do for everyone this morning. It's really hard with the daily news cycle, Google, YouTube, to avoid sort of a steady stream of horror stories, right? That come off of all of those sources, whether they be the parasailing accidents down in the southern waters, or hot air balloons drifting into power lines, or severed limbs at amusement parks, or all of that stuff. It's all out there, and it's just kind of in front of us all the time. So it's a little difficult to figure out where do we put our focus. Where do you put your focus as leaders? Where do you put your focus as parents? So here's how I thought I'd sort that out for you. What you have in front of you is really my priority list. It's the way I look at the world as far as what's our responsibilities, for whom should we think, and when we're talking about the summer and talking about doing activities in the summer. So as adults, I really believe our number one job is making the best possible future for the kids, our kids, your kids. I mean, that's really what this is all about as being humanity. But it's got to be number one when we look out at the summer and look at the things that are going on, the things we're going to have our families do, the things we do for others. ERs, emergency rooms, actually do experience about a 20% increase in visits for trauma injuries during the summer, something I didn't know until I started looking into this. That actually is true. They do see more trauma during the summer, and a lot of that increase is kids 14 and under. I mean, go figure, they're out of school, right? We have them doing things. But that actually is true. As a matter of fact, June, July, August, about half the injuries that occur to that age group, those 0 to 14-year-olds, happen during those 3 months for the year. So it really is true. The others we affect, that second bullet, I mean, I look at that and say we've got a moral responsibility after we think about our kids to think about the other people that are affected by whatever it is that we're doing during the summer with our summer activities. So, think about falling asleep at the wheel while you're trying to drive a long road trip, or boating under the influence, or starting a nice roaring campfire in a really dry forest. Those kind of things, not good ideas. You get the idea. And then finally ourselves, in order to enjoy these summer activities, in order to keep families and friends safe and doing this thing, you have to be around yourself. So you think about yourself. I had hoped in doing the research to figure out a magic formula for all this. Yeah? And actually there is one. Next slide, please. Here's how I phrase it for you. Think term, training, equipment, risk management. Sounds like what we do every day. It really applies when we're looking out at the activities we're doing during the summer that we're sponsoring, that we're doing for our kids, that we're doing for our families, doing for others. It doesn't matter if it's zip lining, mountaineering, water parks, whatever. You need the right amount of training to do it with a reasonable expectation of coming out of it, having a good time and no injuries. Training's important. You look at everything and just think, well, what's the training component to this that I ought to be addressing for my kids, for my family, for myself, before I go and do that? I've found in general that it pays to have the right equipment for the activity you're doing. And sadly, it doesn't really pay to go cheap. A lot of people try that. In my 63 years, I've found myself and others encountering failures just by trying to go cheap on equipment, cut corners, go used, whatever. Don't do that if you can manage to avoid it. Get good equipment, get the right training, and finally, risk management. I've only known about and applied the risk management process to things like summer safety in my own life for about half my life, because that's about the time when we in the Army made the concept available to the general public. So it's something that we can apply. It's something you should learn. So all it takes to have a safe summer, my view, do this, do these things. It just makes sense. So I'm going to give you a couple of tools for that as reminders and then talk about some prioritization of effort. Next slide. This should be familiar to most folks in the room. Second nature in some form or another. I've changed the language from the way we normally see it just to convey the ideas. Everything you look at that might cause you trouble can be looked at in two ways. How likely is it to happen, and how bad is it if it does? And you just think about those two things, and you can plot yourself in this little matrix. This matrix, by the way, for the professionals in the room, this is actually a representation of the new DoD view of the risk management matrix, rather than the Army or the Air Force or other service. This actually is how those things lay out. Apply this. Next. Work cyclically through the risk management process in looking at your summer activities. Just think about these things as you go. Okay? Everyone in the room has got training in this, understands the process, just apply it. So to prioritize this, I'm going to cover a couple of quick sets of ideas. Next. First of all is, keeping to my own priorities, what are the activities that hurt kids during the summer? There's actually two groups of activities you can consider. One is the organized sports world. The other is the other stuff that we do during the summer. And I don't show organized sports here as far as where it fits. But if I did, it would range generally from horse riding and martial arts on the bottom up to basketball and soccer on the top. But they're organized. You've got coaches trained in first aid. You've got first aid kits standing by. You've got all that stuff to take care of them. These activities, we don't do that. Leading thing that you need to be thinking about is the play structures we build for our kids. That's the leading cause of them going to the ERs during the summer, falling off of those things, hurting themselves on them. Just take some supervision. Bikes and skateboards, bites and stings is the only one up here that isn't something we do to our kids. It's something they encounter. Everything else we do to them. The trampolines, things that happen during beach camping, picnicking that we want them to do. Help set up the tent. Help get out of the tent at night. Help set up, cook with the barbecue. Do all that stuff. That's how they get hurt. And BBs and pellet guns, yes, mothers of the world, it is true. BBs and pellet guns do cause injuries, including eye injuries. And the one that's up there that's a little surprising probably is the lawnmower issue, because lawnmowers actually generate more injuries to kids than motor vehicle accidents during the average year. Just getting hit with stuff, being asked to do lawn mowing when they're not ready, they don't have the right training, you don't got the right equipment for them, you're not thinking about risk management. So that's what hurts kids. You can think organized sports on the other side of that and making sure those are taken care of. Next, please. The other way I look at things are, all right, what kills us? What keeps us from being around to help our kids and take care of things? About 131,000 of us die every year in unintentional injuries, okay, in the U.S. Only 3% of those happen at work. 97% happen outside of work, doing other stuff. Well, this one I have to pass on. No matter what age group, 2/3 of those are men. Including infants, including little boys, all the way up until you get to age 75. 75 and above, it's women, and guess why? All the men are dead, right? It's true, sorry. But what kills us, when you look at the internet, what kills us is really a popular meme on the internet, right? I mean, some quick things that you can find out on the internet. You're likely to more die falling out of bed this year than falling out of a roller coaster. All right, just stuff. In fact, you're 100 times more likely to die falling out of bed. All kinds of that stuff is available to you. Disregard all that. Don't look at that for trying to figure out, all right, what should I be concerned about? Because when you think of summer activities, it's easy to think of things you look at and say, that's high risk. I should think about that. But what I'm going to tell you is, you should think about the stuff that kills us just routinely, that we've got to consider, and you just be thinking out about from a risk management standpoint. Leading cause of unintentional death in the country, poisonings, not motor vehicles, poisonings. And the biggest piece of that, anyway, prescription medicines, drug overdoses, unintentional overdoses of drugs. And I'm not talking about little kids, I'm talking about us, the 25 to 65-year-olds. We've got a prescription turn-in day coming in. Take advantage of that kind of stuff, and please be thinking about that. Motor vehicles, still an issue. It's the leading cause of death for some of the younger kids, 5 to 14, but it's not that many deaths. It's a fairly equal opportunity killer. Falls, predominantly that's older folks. 75 and older definitely, and 45 and older. Little kids, it's changing tables and windows, and bigger kids, it's sports and bikes, but there's not that many of them. It's predominantly an older person issue. Same with choking. We think about, we got to watch out for little kids. This is the 45 and up crowd really die from choking. So be thinking about that. Drowning, also equal opportunity. It's a little higher for the very, very young, but in general, it's equal opportunity employer. Fire, flames, and smoke. And then finally, this one down on the lower left is supposed to represent mechanical suffocation. I just don't want to put anything else up there for a graphic representing that. Mechanical suffocation, that's predominantly the very little, 0 to 4-year-olds. The Venetian blind strings, the bedding, the bags, it's a real thing, and just watch for those things. Everything else, fairly equal opportunity employers, that's what the lower right one is about. These are the things that kill you in unintentional ways. From a summer standpoint, they're the same as they are from a winter standpoint. Across the board, other than motor vehicles, which increase slightly in the summer, and a few others, they're generally equal opportunity. But I know that that stuff seems ordinary. It just seems like, okay, we got all that, we do that. But what I'm telling you is it's still happening. Put your focus there, put your risk management focus there. Then, if in fact you really have to have, if you're an adrenaline junkie, you have to think about, all right, what about these great summer activities? I put together a quick top 10 list that I'll go down through for the more adventurous summer activities, just in case you didn't know. And as a benchmark for looking at this list, I'll show you, the hardest part of this is figuring out how to normalize the data. You look on the internet, you can find stuff about every kind of activity and sport, and you have no idea how to compare it to anything else. How do you compare mountaineering and scuba diving? How do you compare that? How do you compare the badness of it, if you will, or the risk involved? What I did was to go through all these numbers and figure out how to normalize the data that I could find in terms of this year and per 10,000 participants. So that's what you see. All right, so real quickly, number 10. Next slide. Next. And you're just going to have to work up through these. Next. Number 10, scuba diving. It's way down at the bottom of the list. 0.3 per 10,000 participants per year. You know, fairly good, fairly innocuous sport. Next. Number 9, just going out and hiking in the mountains. Number 8, bungee jumping. Number 7, riding a motorcycle. Number 6, oh, this is what I do. Number 5, skydiving. Okay, triple the risk of climbing a mountain, so I probably won't do that. Number 4, or I probably won't do that. Number 3, definitely not going to do that. Number 2, no, you won't find me doing that. And finally, if you want to take on the riskiest thing that you can do this summer or next summer, number 1 is more than 10% of the people who take on that activity die. Okay? So if you ever had that on your list, be thinking about that. All right, next slide. So that's my pitch. I'm giving you in the slide set. These are really credible resources for all this sort of thing. There's a lot of places you can go to find stuff. I've vetted all these. They're good places to go to find about both the hazards and the controls involved that you might use from a risk management standpoint. And finally, on the 26th of May, here on Joint Base Lewis McChord, over at the MWR Fest tent, we have a Joint Base Safety Exhibition going on 0900 to 1500. Everyone on the base is welcome. There'll be a number of great vendors out there showing all kinds of things related to both summer as well as occupational safety and health and other things. We encourage you to participate. And subject to your questions, sir, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Colonel Place.
Yeah, so good morning, everybody. Want to follow up with that. Actually, we set a record, I believe it was last time we had a prescription drug turn-in, the highest we've ever had here, and I think we're the top one in the Army this last time. I remember how many pounds of drugs that were turned in, but that was a good thing. Next event is on Friday, actually, so go through your cabinets now, get ready for summer. If you go to the next slide, please. I only have 2 slides. My ability to remember things are limited, so 2 is about all I can get to. Number 1, there's been a change in your TRICARE benefit. You're now authorized as as prime beneficiaries. You have the opportunity to go to urgent care visits for free. 2 of them every single year. So every single one of you who is TRICARE Prime can go to 2 urgent care visits per year, starting 23rd of May of this year. Now, I would recommend that you try the nurse advice line, which is available 24/7, 365, to talk with them about whether or not you need to go to an urgent care visit. It does 2 things for you. Number 1, if they recommend you go to an urgent care visit, it doesn't count against your 2, so you still have those 2 available. And number 2, you might not have to go, and we can get you an appointment or kind of talk you through how to take care of it at home. So. But for everyone, you ought to know that this is available. Also know that it doesn't apply to those in TRICARE Standard, right? So you've got to be a prime beneficiary in order to have that available to you. Again, that's going to be coming out in The Guardian, I believe, this week. And if you ever have any questions, you can either come to our Facebook site or you can go to tricare.mil to get all the rest of the details. If you go to the next slide, please. Somebody asked me this not long ago, and I want to make sure the entire community knew that if you want to get optometry services with us, you can. A lot of places there's not capacity for optometry for family members, retirees, and so forth. You can certainly do that with us. Now, we don't make glasses for you, so you're still going to have to go get your glasses made, but if you want to have an exam and prescription and so forth, we can take care of that for you here on JBLM, McChord Clinic, or Winder, a number of different clinics that we have folks in.
I read it was fast, easy, and fabulous.
Fast, easy, fabulous. 3 words I really like. All right, great. So some of the details there, I know you have access to the slides, but I just want to make the point to make sure the entire community knows that, yes, it's not just active duty. If you want to get your eyes checked, we can do it for you. And I believe that's the last slide for us. Any questions for Madigan? All right, if you do, we'll be around afterwards. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Don Meyer, Chief of Housing for Joint Base Lewis McChord, and your representative for housing here on the installation and Joint Base. And so I'd just like to point out 2 things today. One is we're about 30 days into our new transition with Lincoln Military Housing. I had a lot of questions about how do I get to Lincoln's webpage, how do I get back to register for housing. So in the slide deck, you'll see the slide for Lincoln Military Housing, how to get to their webpage. I'd ask you to go there, pass this along to as you're sponsoring people to get them in so they can register for housing and can get on the installation and pick the neighborhood where they would like to live. Next slide, please. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the RCI housing survey that went out. It started out about the middle of April. And we've got, right now, we're at 8.7% of responses of 5,500 homes that got emails from DOD asking them to take the survey. So I would ask that you talk to your units, talk to your service members, and get them in to take the survey. It isn't, you know, Lincoln Military Housing is giving prizes away. That's a good thing. You know, give those gift cards when the drawing will be on the 29th of April. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is getting the feedback from you, the resident, to us, to Lincoln, so that we can work on our processes, work on our procedures, fix things that you are seeing in the community that you would like to have us address. This is how we get your feedback. This is how we find out if the program is working and if our partner is doing what they're supposed to be doing from a resident and a tenant perspective. So please, please, please push down to your service members, take the survey. Let their voice be heard. When they ask for a response, either a Lincoln representative or myself will respond directly to them. It's usually within 3 days. Okay, so please take the survey. Pending any questions? For Lincoln Military, if you want to get on there, it's www.lincoln. Yeah, next slide. Go back. Can you go back 1 slide? Yeah, lincolnmilitary.com. Okay? Yeah, it's got a typo.
I have a quick question. The maintenance service request link that's on that website is not working.
Yes, we know that. It's
Okay.
a Lincoln. I'll explain this real quick. When they were previously Equity had a on-base call center for service order work orders that only worked during the day. On weekends and after duty hours, you would call the Public Works, and Public Works would then pass it on. Lincoln Military has a 24/7 manned call center. So they've switched that. We did notice that in the bug. They switched from some of their systems. They went from RealPage to Yardi, so there were some disconnects there. But we have got that identified and it's being corrected right now. Okay? Yes, sir, please.
There's a lot of survey fatigue across the military, and I think we all know that. Is there a way for family members, spouses, anybody to provide input into housing without a survey? Is there something that you can put up or do where somebody could just say, I want to provide input, and it's kind of an ongoing issue, running estimates, so to speak. So in addition to the survey, there's just a way for an X person to say, I want to contribute some input.
Roger, sir. You can always use ICE. We have all of our... Okay. Correct. And if you go to the Joint Base Lewis McChord website and you go to the Public Works side, there's the telephone numbers and the email contact for my office. And you can always reach out to us as a government agent to provide us with some feedback. Either call me, email me, get that information to you, and I will definitely get back to you right away. All right. Yes, sir. So, yes, ma'am.
With the link that you had up there to the survey, but it takes you to a long list of possible surveys that you
Right,
gotta
there's
click
a
on.
typo
So you
in it.
need to know that
There's an N missing.
okay.
So it's Lincoln, Lincoln,
No.
military housing.
No, I'm sorry, on the cellassociates.com, take your survey. So
Right.
what you need is that second part, the 856-1.
Right, and what should have happened, all the residents that were living in housing, they got an email sent to them with the link for the survey. and all they have to do is go to their email and click on their link, and it'll take them straight to the survey.
I was just looking for a way in case they've deleted the email that now we know we can tell them if you didn't keep the email.
Yeah, if they
go
didn't keep
back
it, they can
and-
go back to that. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
thank
a little problematic to get back to it from this side, but you know, if you use the one that you got the email in, you can get right to it. All right. So, Penny, any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Good morning, folks. I'm Mark Brown, the Director of Human Resources. I want to highlight next week, the 4th of May, as an opportunity for folks at 9 o'clock in the morning, battalion and squadron level leadership teams, the commander and their sergeant major or chief. We'd like them to come and join us that morning. You'll see the corporate partners in the lower left. Those are some of the corporate partners that will share their viewpoints with the command teams about the challenges of transition back to civilian life. And in the afternoon at 1300 is for clients. So military personnel, veterans, and family members who want to get a job in the civilian community, we'd like them to come in the afternoon. So for the morning crew, there's free lunch for the command teams to stay on board. Some of the things I'll share with you, the concerns that they have, is that our military folks and the spouses in many cases don't do a good job of translating their backgrounds into language that resonates in that sector. So it's almost like learning a foreign language for a lot of military folks. The longer you're in, the more you speak in buzzwords and acronyms without realizing it. When you use that same language with corporations, with corporate partners, it just largely doesn't resonate. So that's part of what the conversation will be about.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
I want to talk just to the commanders for a second. I want to say something here about how important this is. Usually, generally, normally, we have job fairs where people are walking around with their resumes and hangers looking for jobs. What we've done here is we've gone up to Seattle and we said, look, what does it take to help a leader transition? So Amazon, Boeing, and Starbucks are coming down here to do what's called a reverse job fair to say, this is what we need you to do. This is what we're looking for. This is how you prepare. This is how you take a first sergeant's job description and put it into something that we at Starbucks can say, now I understand. And what they'll give us are tips on how to help our leaders transition because we owe it to them, as opposed to running around a hangar going, here's my resume, and then we find out it does not translate into managerial skills that business owners are looking for. So I encourage everybody to take advantage of this because these are some large corporations, and even if you don't stay in the area, the skill sets that they'll give you and what they'll allow you to take away from this is what you can contribute to your leaders to say, here's what you need to do a year out to help you transition and to start the ACAP process and give you some groundwork and some TTPs that may help. So I think this is a great opportunity. I appreciate what these companies are doing because they're taking their time to come down here and help us educate our leaders that have served with dignity, they've served with respect, they've served selflessly, and now we owe them a great path to help them transition with their families. And there'll also be a discussion here about spouses as well, which is significant when you transition. So thanks very much, Mark.
Sir, I just want to add that we're trying to drive retention. A lot of folks see us as their adversary when it comes to retention in the military. It's the opposite. Most of our clients are not ready to transition. So if they start early with us, at least a year out, we make them do a 12-month financial plan post-separation. That alone wakes a lot of folks up. The second part is the skill gap. They may, like, for example, if you're in an S3 shop, you know operations, but if you don't have a PMP, a professional a project management professional credential, it won't resonate. If you're in HR, you're an AG soldier, if you don't have the SHRM credentials, it won't resonate. Your IT professionals, if they don't have industry recognized credentials, it still won't resonate. So those are examples that if you don't start early and you figure out your financials and figure out the skill gap, you won't be ready when you separate. So we hope to drive and start to capture metrics going forward that actually shows that if they started with us about a year out, they'll drive back to the retention NCO career counselor and stay in the service. And then we'll try to report out on that in the future. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's the American Light Conference Center at 0900 for the leadership teams and 1300 for clients. Any other questions? Thank you. Yes, sir.
Morning. This is your key events for summer 2016 brief. I'm Buck James. I'm your director of DPTMS. A lot of these have already been covered. I would like to highlight a couple for you. Next week we've got spring cleanup. I'm not sure if everybody's tracking that, but twice a year we stand down from our normal high out tempo of training and activities and all our service members and our entire joint base team, all the stakeholders go out and we clean up all of our ranges, do some maintenance. We pull a lot of, I'll be candid with you, a lot of illegal dumping out of our training areas, tires, the whole 9 yards. We found an Edsel, I think, last year, and I don't know, they probably should have auctioned that off. Probably could have made some money, but we'll be doing that next week. A lot of the other events that you saw in here, I think I mentioned this last time. I really want to put a plug in for those of you that like to run. I've got a sticker on the back of my car that says 0.0. I don't run, so. But that half marathon and 5K is a great opportunity. Just want to highlight again that you can go and do the 5K, but you get the t-shirt that says half marathon, so you can tell folks what you want to on that one. Armed Forces Day, all the other stuff we've talked about there. I want to put a plug in for the Retiree Appreciation Day. Mr. Silva always does a great job on that, so I know a lot of our folks, you've got connectors with your veteran organizations, with your regiments and your battalions and your brigades. This is a really good opportunity for them to come maintain their connection with the Army, true soldier for life. It's a great day, and they put a lot of stuff out there. It goes out and it reinforces a lot of what Army Echoes puts out for those of us that have embraced that soldier for life. I don't personally play golf, so I'll have to default to Dennis's tremendous rally for golf. Golf is a great walk room, I think Mark Twain said on that one. I think it'd be a much better ski range, but they don't seem to take my recommendations on that. Sound and Arrows, 0430 link up at Cowan Stadium. It's always been a great event here in the South Sound. Units supporting that, running in formation. Huge, huge benefit. The communities love to see the soldiers out there running. Army birthday on the 14th, of course, the Army birthday or the Army ball on the 9th. I know the flyers are out on that. Want to put a plug in. And then the other thing, again, most of this you've already seen, but again, the air show and the Warrior Exposition on the 26th and 28th. On that particular one, we're going to continue to give you more and more information. You got the first bite of it today when Dennis gave you the update. But we will be doing a lot of our emergency management drills and our situational training exercises as we get towards that. It's a huge event. We want to make sure that we're ready on the backside of that if necessary. But as much as possible, we'll try to keep that from being a disruptor. I know sometimes some of the anti-terrorism force protection events we do cause some delays at the gates and small ones. So we're trying to time those and synchronize them so they're transparent to you all, but we'll continue to go. Again, key events for the summer. What isn't on here is the tremendously high operations tempo that our mission units have right now. I don't need to tell anybody in this audience how hard our service members are working right now. Not only our soldiers in the core footprint, but our team members in the wing who every single day are leaning forward to have their nuclear surety mission always ready. That's a no-fail. So again, just a quick perspective for you. A lot of stuff going on. Summer's a great time to be at JBLM. And if there's any more information you need on any of these specific events or mission-specific events, we're standing by to assist. Is there any questions? Always a pleasure, sir.
Thanks, Bob. Hi, I'm Kelly Weiner with the Spouses Club. Our next luncheon is May 12th. It's going to be at the home of the Lanzas. You might want to put that on your calendar. And it's going to be like a garden party, so we've asked everyone to wear their best hats and their clothes for outside. It will be outside. We're having vendors, so they'll be shopping. I think General Lanz is going to set up his jewelry and wear his best hat, so please don't miss this. I'd also like to tell you about our welfare that we just gave out this month. We were able to give back $13,000 to the community. And just so you're all aware, and there might be some people from the McChord side here, we do not run our thrift shop through the Spouses Club. It's very unusual that the Spouses Club doesn't have the thrift shop under them, but it's a private org here as a scholarship. So the thrift shop tends to give out over $100,000, which normally falls under the Spouses Club. So the $13,000 we give is solely based on yours and your spouses contributing to the Spouses Club and our Night to Remember event. So thank you so much for all you did for that event. That is how we get our money, and that is how we give back to the community. So thank you very much.
So next up, I'd like to introduce Sarah Sarah Luna. She is with the South Sound Military Community Partnership. And just a quick, if you're not familiar with them, they do a lot of assistance and help us with our partners outside the gate. A lot of folks that we rely on to support the 70% of our population that lives outside the gates. And so Sarah's going to give you some information on the survey that they're going to be sending out.
Thanks so much, Alicia. So first of all, my name is Sarah Luna, but when you talk about Mr. Fun, I am Miss Fun. I used to be Mickey Mouse at Walt Disney World. That's not a joke. That's just so that you remember who I am, because you'll forget my name, but you'll remember that lady who was Mickey Mouse. So I am all about fun, so is my family. Thank you all so much for those who contributed to the Kids Fest. My 3-year-old daughter and my husband had an amazing time. My husband, who was Special Operations Weather, was super jealous that my daughter got to sit in an Apache before he did. But that was fantastic. And events like that are reasons why we have been recognized as one of the great American defense communities. We are one of 10 cities, 10 areas in the states that have been given that recognition. And SSMCP is the one who nominated for that. We're putting on a survey so that we continue to be one of the great American defense communities. We've already heard people are tired of taking surveys. It's very difficult to get them motivated, and so that's why we need our commanders to help get people to take these surveys. We are an objective organization, so this is one reason why you can say, take this survey, because we are interested in getting information on education, transportation, healthcare, those things that make a difference to our service members and their families. So we're just trying to get some basic information of who our group is. We've done surveys in the past, so we're trying to keep that information updated and get a best idea of how to get those improvements done. Thank you to APHIS for your contribution. They're helping provide some of the prizes. We also have some other gift certificates from $25 to $100, randomly selected to those who take this survey. So if you present it like for $25 in a 12.5-minute survey, we beta tested this, and that's about how long it takes, then they're making $2 a minute for their time. If you get a $100 gift certificate, that's $8 a minute. So just different ways of trying to present this and help encourage people to take this. Bottom line is so that we get that information and we can help provide that to our other organizations. We have 2 counties, Pierce and Thurston County, 13 cities, and 12 other organizations. JBLM is one of the organizations that's part of SSMCP. So it's really important that we get this feedback. The surveys are going to go out through the af.mil and .mil websites, or email. And so we're really hoping to get at least 5,000 respondents out of all of those. So, any questions? Thanks so much.
Okay, we're winding it up. I don't want to put this up here because I know it's important to the kids and me. So this big one's coming out, and so you do have the dates that are coming up here on 6 May, 7 May, and 8 May for the new Marvel with Captain America and fighting Iron Man, from what I understand. So, but this is up there for you, and all the slides will be available. Really quick, I got a couple things I want to go over. On Sunday, it's May Day. Does everybody know what May Day is in Seattle? Okay, I only see one hand, a couple of yeses, so I know Matt Toth and those guys know. So May Day is a day of demonstrations and protests that take place in Seattle. It could be on anything. It could be on a variety of different immigration issues, you name it. And so it can get violent. So I would suggest don't go north. If you are up in Seattle and you see it, go the other way. Or you'll end up on an email and we'll find out, what happened, and hopefully you're not involved in it, obviously. But Sunday is May Day. It's being put out on Facebook and a variety of other means, so you can get that out to your soldiers, out to your airmen about what May Day is and the risk that it could place on your family member or your service member as well. So I wanted to go, based off of your feedback, we wanted to go over the summer events so the families had an idea of what was coming up over the summer so you can communicate that through your FRG. The safety, summer safety is a big deal, obviously, as you all know, and there's a commander's, it's a commander's program, but if you need any help between the core safety and our safety office, we have a breadth of information that we can come down to your FRGs or anything else to help communicate some of the safety risks, particularly in this area, or other opportunities that we can do for your families and so forth as well. Normally, as I said, we talk about, if we go to the next slide, please. Normally, we talk about the installation priorities with regards to what's going on JBLM, whether it's tied to domestic violence, whether it's tied, like we talked about, to sexual assault, and so forth. And so next month, and Colonel Larry Dillard and I have spoken, we're going to go over the performance triad, and he's going to talk about what he's doing with his organization as a test bed and how he's sharing that amongst the force across JBLM, but then also it applies to everybody, to the family members as well, so we can be able to take some of that information and start getting it across the entire JBLM population as well. Other than that, Mike, do you have anything you want to add? No, Steve? Nope. No, yeah, sir. You got anything? Nothing? Mrs. James, there you are. Nothing? Lori Ryan.
You mentioned May 8th.
I just want to remind all of these guys around here who are as busy as my husband is, that's also Mother's Day. See, you're welcome.
And other than that,
Just a couple. I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank the JBLM community, specifically the command team here, for what they do to bring the programs together. And I want to take a minute to thank the chaplain's office for all this chow that broke our PT programs this morning. So thanks very much for a couple of things while I'm up here. I want to take an opportunity to thank all the volunteer organizations. There was a lot of discussion here today, but there's a tremendous amount of organizations on this installation that volunteer for the good of the installation. So I just want to publicly thank all of you who donate your time to volunteer to help the installation. And I wanted to provide some feedback on the goodness of the Joint Base. I think a couple of weeks ago we had the Secretary of Defense here. Yesterday we had the Secretary of the Air Force here. In September we're probably going to have the Secretary of the Army here. And the goodness of this Joint Base continues to resonate, not just here in this community in the South Sound area, but it resonates throughout DOD. And that's because of the cooperation between the entire team here, between the spouses, family members, the Air Force, the Army, and then the joint team that commands us here. And I want to thank you for what you do here, because it does make a difference both on the installation, and it makes a difference with how people receive us for requirements. A couple of things that are important that are coming up. I just want to reemphasize the Army birthday. That'll be in Tacoma at the Convention Center. Last year we had about 1,200 people. We're expecting even more this year. It is an all-ranks Army birthday ball. It is prorated. We're working with our sponsors to work the cost on that, and that is going to be run by the 593rd. So I thank Jack Haley and his team for doing that. And then the Special Olympics. If you have not been to the Special Olympics on this installation, it is phenomenal. It is run by the entire installation. 7th ID is taking it on this year. We'll have a little cocktail party at the house to welcome the entire Special Olympics team. And then we'll go to the hangar at McChord. And we will have an opening ceremony that will be tremendous. It will bring you to your feet, I guarantee it. So please support that. And then, of course, Mother's Day coming up, the reverse job fair. And I want to put a plug in for Randy at the bistro. I know we talked about the bistro today. He is a tremendous chef. He's got a tremendous team there. He has done a lot of work for a lot of people on the installation. I really encourage you to leverage that, because it really is some good work there. And then what was not mentioned today is Seafair up in Seattle. Seafair is one of the largest events in this state. It's probably the largest event in this state, and it's held in Seattle every year. The Blue Angels come in, there are parachute jumpers coming in, there are races on the Lake Washington. I would encourage everybody, for family members, to take part in that. We at JBLM will participate in that. We'll have leadership up there, we'll have static displays. But again, another great opportunity for you and your family. And one last thing where I need your help, and this is just a personal note. We, unfortunately, like every other installation, have a dearth of suicides that affect all of us. And 91% of all the suicides since I have been here, 91% have some relationship issue that has been affecting the suicide. So I encourage you, and the chaplain talked about readiness. He started off the discussion on readiness. And I ask you, as you go back to your organizations, is those relationship issues manifest potentially into something different. And it does not necessarily have to be a spouse. It can be a mom or dad. It could be a family member. But I ask you, for those individuals that have relationship issues, we have tremendous programs, whether it be through FAP, whether it be through what the chaplains are doing, to get help to build and bridge these gaps on relationship issues. And now that we have less deployments, even though the op tempo is high, there is more home station training. There are more leaders right now that are home periodically, much more than perhaps when we deployed for 12 to 15 months. So we've had a spike in domestic violence on this installation. We've had a spike in child violence, domestic violence against children. And that's one thing I'm not proud of on the installation. So I ask you, as you look at relationship issues in your organization, is where can we help preclude that and take advantage of all the tremendous programs that are on this installation, both on and off the installation, because there's also programs with our medical team that will help you off the installation that Mike Place has. And I think that continues to make this not only the best joint installation in the Army, but the best installation in DoD. So thanks for your support, and thanks for coming out today. And more importantly, thanks for all you do to keep this the best base in the Army. Thanks very much. Okay, so our next meeting is on 1 June. Again, this is your meeting, and so your interaction and the questions back and forth will really facilitate the transparency and the collaboration that we need. So thank you.